And we are live here at the World Blockchain Summit. I haven't said it like that in a few years. That's pretty awesome. The World Blockchain Summit, we're back. It's back. Live event here in Dubai, beautiful Dubai. Wonderful weather today. Actually slept with the door open, and I was at one point a little chilly last night. And when the temperature starts to drop, it drops really quickly. So fantastic. And we're here, of course, my good friend Mohammed Salim has put this event together. Everybody loves the guy, very well respected, and you can see that by who is in attendance and who is speaking. My good friend Dr. Marwan was on stage a little bit earlier. Actually, Caesar was supposed to be here, but he got called away to Abu Dhabi for some VVIP thing or whatever. I think he was with Nick Spanos. But anyway, I have with me here Jason Meyers. We have met along the way, maybe in Malta. I know we did an interview in Malta. He has Auditchain, and obviously, especially in the U.S., but across the world, as this asset class becomes more and more popular and more valuable, auditing it and everybody in it has become more and more important for governments. So, Jason, tell me a little bit. I know you've been working on it a while. We've gone through COVID. Tell me a little bit about how things have developed and what brought you here to the World Blockchain Summit.
So we're sponsoring an event at the end of the month, and it's the Disrupt 2021. We launched on a test net this week, which is we've been at it for a long time. It's a very complex project. And our node architecture is what sets the rules for the valid state for a reporting entity, no matter what it is, based upon its reporting style and its reporting scheme, IFRS, US GAAP. So although we live in an open ledger-based society, the contextualization of transactions by specific projects is important, right? Because the old world, which still exists, files financial reports periodically, but periodic reports are not sufficient for an open ledger-based society, right? So the other thing is that the world's business and financial information are audited by 4 companies. And that information is not validated the same way transactions are validated on a blockchain. But in light of what we learned in the last 10 plus years about a blockchain and how it works, our project is about applying blockchain style validation to assurance and financial reporting.
Well, it's very interesting, and I can appreciate there's a lot of intricacies, right? I mean, you take somebody who is operating in the space, even like any of these conferences, right? Someone wants to pay them in Ethereum, or they want to pay them in Bitcoin, or maybe they want to pay them in Dogecoin. And, you know, the governments, of course, they always want their VAT. And you hear in the United Arab Emirates, listen, they don't tax a lot of things. The things they tax, go ahead and pay it. You know, it's like, I guess any country, right? You always agree to go by the rules. And so, obviously, a big component of that. But so tell me a little bit, I mean, or how does it work? Like, let's say Mohammed Salim here takes a sponsor, $60,000 from a sponsor, and they pay in Ethereum. How does the Auditchain deal with that? What does that look like?
Well, that's just one transaction.
Right.
So we deal with the presentation of financial statements, right? Okay. So if you think of an economic entity from a computer science perspective, it's a state machine. And it undergoes complex changes in state based upon the myriad of transactions that occur within it, right? In addition, decentralized networks are also state machines, right? They undergo changes in state. So what an individual company would do is, and I'm oversimplifying it, plug their accounting and related systems into the protocol and articulate each of their changes in state.
Okay.
And then an army of CPAs and chartered accountants validate those changes in state. So it ends up being a higher level of assurance and a far more granular based financial reporting architecture.
Well, you said something very interesting because it sounds like you're using a mixture of blockchain and human or professional. It sounded like maybe I heard it wrong.
No, you heard it right, but the CPAs operate our node, which we lovingly refer to as Pacioli, after Luca Pacioli, the one who documented double entry accounting for the Medici when he worked for the Medici, right? So they operate nodes, and should they choose to, they can be invited into private cohorts to do audits and make attestations. You got to be a CPA or a chartered accountant to do that, right? Otherwise, in the open architecture, they run the same node for the purposes of validating the structure, accuracy, and compliance with reporting schemes for a financial report, but they're not making an attestation. It's a lower level of assurance, but that the company provides, but it's not assurance the way we see it today, where you have an opinion letter in the back of an annual report filed with regulators, right?
Sure.
So it's also used for research. So you can take any financial report filed with any of the 50 jurisdictions that require the use of XBRL and submit it to the network, and you can get a report back showing where the inconsistencies are. It's not up to say they're inconsistencies, right? And there are inconsistencies in the majority of financial reports filed with regulators. So, there's a number of layers to the onion.
Yes, as it always is, and it's a rabbit hole. I feel like you're in New York. I mean, you're kind of I'm in Washington D.C., so we're on a couple of hours or 3 hours between each other, but not even there either of us that much. But there's a lot of regulations and everything, and a lot of heat coming out of New York.
There is.
How is everything being received?
Well, they're chasing everybody out of the United States, and they're going into other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So we're not allowed to talk about our token, despite the fact that we have one here, because just the other day, the government of Dubai had enacted some sort of a executive order, so nobody can talk about tokens, right? So we can't talk about tokens.
I think the main thing, and I should be more familiar with the act. I think that the main thing that I was focused on is raising money, not so much the actual tokens. But I will talk to a few other people about that and see. I know that was something that happened earlier in the week with some of the other events that were here, primarily to raise money. And obviously, tokens and these types of offerings have been an effective way to raise money for a lot of people. And so they come here. You can still raise money, for what I understand. You can't advertise that you're basically doing a raise. This is how I understand it. No, I can confirm.
Well, the thing is, look, we did something no other project did. We raised capital, and then we built a product, and then we're going to launch our token. Right. So our token has a ton of utility.
Right.
That's why we have a token.
Sure.
Because if you think of it as a transferable software license, right? The more access and utility you want to use on the network, the more tokens you're going to need.
Okay.
Right? So, for instance, if you want to be a node operator, you've got to stake tokens. Yep. If you don't want to stake tokens, but you want to operate a node, then anyone who has tokens can delegate their tokens to you and back you, right?
Yep.
So that's how the infrastructure of the network is architected.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty interesting. Obviously, I wanted to ask about that. And what did you build it on? Using Ethereum or?
It's built on Ethereum, and there are sort of optimistic roll-ups that we built before they even called it optimistic roll-ups. We just devised a way to help scale as best as we could the network. And so, yeah, but we're also performing different experiments using different layer 2 scaling solutions and wrappers and bridges and so on.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, there's so much liquidity in the Ethereum network. It's kind of one of those things like we've been talking about. We have obviously an old legacy coin from 8 years ago. It's still mineable. People still mine it, trade it in. But, as we look at updating it, you're like, well, the fees and this and that and the other. But how do you step away from that massive amount of liquidity and interoperability of, different wallets and everything else? I mean, it's just, it's huge. It's almost to the point where you need to have at least some existence on the Ethereum network if you want to be a successful project.
That's true.
Almost.
That's true. No, not almost. You've got to have, look, it's the largest chain, biggest developer community, right?
Yeah, by
so
far.
There's no way out of it.
Not even like second place is so far.
Yeah.
It's not even so. So where do you go from here? I understand, like us, you're doing a lot of traveling. You have your event. I guess tell me a little bit more about this event.
So there's an event that we're just sponsoring at the end of the month called the Disrupt 2021 event. It's here in Dubai.
Okay.
I forget the hotel, but I think it's the 25th through the 27th.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. Yeah. So I'll be speaking there, and there are other events that we're going to attend over the next 2 weeks or so. So yeah.
A lot of good ones.
Yeah.
As you know, we're a media partner on location. All of them we've been running since early this morning, setting them up. We have this same banner up all over the place. We're at the Future Innovation Summit tomorrow. Of course, we kick off at the Crypto Expo Dubai, as well as the WOW Summit. Of course, I kick off the stage here as the first speaker on day 2, which is always fun for me because I get to rally everybody up, but I hope everybody's not too hungover to come in here. You know how it is. Big parties tonight. Of course, the World Blockchain Summit has their after-party gala event, as well as VVIP events, kind of spread out sporadically. So what's the website, and how do people get a hold of you? Any last final thoughts?
Yeah, you can find us at auditchain.finance. You can find me at Jason Meyers NYC on Twitter, at Auditchain on Twitter. On the sidebar of our website is all our social media channels. So, final thoughts. We're going to launch in a couple of months commercially, the first beta launch. And it's good stuff.
Jason Meyers, great to catch up with you again.
All right, you too.
We'll
Thanks
see
for
you
having me,
around,
Bruce.
I'm sure, of course.
Thank you.